Welcome to this mobile talk. My name is Carlos Grau. I have been just recently appointed last week new general manager of the Mobile World Capital Barcelona. This is just my first event in the company, so a lot of emotions, a lot of feelings in a space that is magic for our city, and with a topic, with a subject that is critical for all of us in our ecosystems. So as you know, these events, these mobile talk are a point of contact between experts, between professionals of the ecosystems, just to analyze impact, to see how the transformation, how the digital transformation, how new trends are impacting our lives at home, in our work environment, and how we can leverage the opportunities that digital transformation and innovation are bringing to all of us. Huge challenges in front of us, and for that I want to say thank you very much to the panel that we will have today. That is an amazing panel of experts. So we'll have Christopher Dottie, General Manager of Asics Spain, with us today. Thanks, Christopher, for coming and joining us today. Francisco Martínez, General Manager of Celera. Francisco, thank you for joining us today. Xavier Escales, Country Manager of Asics Spain and Portugal. Xavi, thanks very much for making the time to be with us. Sylvia Pascaline, Global Talent Acquisition Specialist for Almirall. Sylvia. And Manuel Ángel Méndez, he's leading Teknautas and who will be managing the table and managing the debate. As you know, Mobile Talks is a point of contact between professionals of the ecosystem. We try to anticipate trends and see how these trends can leverage opportunities for our companies and for all of us. When we talk about digital transformation, we talk a lot of times about the new technologies that are coming. We talk a lot about the new processes, the new business models that are behind. But the most critical asset in all the companies is the talent, and how we leverage and address the opportunities of the new talent. And from the Mobile World Capital, we want to provide guidance and support to all the companies in order to take opportunities and leverage the opportunities of this transformation. When we talk about technology, the speed of change is huge. It's faster than the speed that we can accommodate the changes in our companies. And when we talk about talent, part of the debate today will be how we attract, how we are able to build a new culture of innovation in our companies to attract new digital talent. How we will be able to attract, develop, and retain millennials that now are asking us new requirements in our companies. It's almost impossible to retain a millennial in a company if you don't have an inspirational mission and objective. It's extremely challenging if you don't put really amazing objectives and challenging projects in front of them. It's really to retain them if you don't have good leaders and good coaches to keep them and help them to develop. And it's also extremely challenging if you are not able to offer them a career path for the future and show them future. And this is putting all of our organization in a challenging environment, because we need to escalate the level of management there. We need to have still more clear mission and vision in our company, and very inspirational challenges to retain and attract these people. And for all of us in most of our companies, is one of the top challenges we need to face in the next coming future. But if we look to the employees and the structure that we have today, more than 90+% of our structure are not millennials, are people that we need to retain and develop and transform to address these new challenges. How we help them to retrain themselves, to get speed on knowledge management, and to get speed on new technologies, new habits, new ways of conduct. How we help them to work in a different way. We have been pushing most of our organizations to what we have called a high performance team. how we build a high-performance team has been most of our challenges in the past. And now the challenge is not how we build a high-performance team. The challenge is how we work better in networks. In networks that is not just our company and our team, is providers, customers, startups in the ecosystem that help them to leverage innovation. So this is putting huge pressure in knowledge management, in training, in new skills, in the people that we have today. So talent is probably the main asset to lead this transformation, and I think that the topic that we are covering today is critical for all of us in the ecosystem. So I want to say thank you for the experts on the panel. That is an amazing panel for us, and I want to ask Manuel to join us and start the debate. Manuel, please. Thank you.
Well, good morning. Thank you, everyone, for being here. And also thank you, Carlos, for the introduction. And thank you to the Mobile World Capital organization for inviting me to moderate this great panel. We've been last night, meeting up, and I'm sure it's going to be a great session, a great couple of hours. I just wanted to make a very brief introduction on what we are going to talk in the next 2 hours or so, because this is, I guess, the reason why this full is almost room. It's probably one of the most pressing issues today for every single type of company, be it a multinational, be it a startup, and it's not really talent. It's actually how to recruit and how to retain a very specific type of talent, which we tend to call digital talent. Now, what's that of digital talent? That's one of the questions we'll hopefully answer today. But I like one of the definitions that I read recently. I think it was a McKinsey report, a recent report, saying that digital talent is people that help organizations transform into digital business. So transform from traditional to digital. And so we start to hear about, transformation, innovation. We've been hearing these words for years and years and years. And so what does that really mean? That's what we'll be discussing today, trying to understand what are all the drivers. And we have an amazing panel here that will talk us about different sectors. I wanted to give an example on a sector I know very well, the media sector, because as you know, technology and the internet has completely, trashed the media sector. I mean, it's especially for newspapers, the internet and technology, it's almost destroyed a lot of media companies. I work for El Confidencial. I run the technology and science section, and so 4 or 5 years ago, we decided to do something quite strange in the media sector, which was create what we call El Confidencial Lab. That's basically a team of about 20 people, more or less. And those are people from a mathematician and a statistician who knows how to run models on online audience development, to a data analyst, for example, who knows how to decrypt a document that has been leaked to us and analyze all the data and run an exclusive story on that, to, for example, designers who know how to create a new way to tell a story, to software developers of mobile applications, to even cybersecurity guys who know how to stop a cyber attack. For example, if you have anonymous or a random Russian hacker, now that we all talk about Russian bots and Russian hackers, how to avoid that they take your site down. That, by the way, as it happened with El País newspaper site, they were attacked with a DDoS attack, and their site went down, and we had the same attack, and our site was online. So that's a group of people, very talented people, that really over the last 4 or 5 years managed 3 key things for El Confidencial, which is, first of all, to have a different product. a product that's been recognized, for example, with a Pulitzer Prize award with the work of the Panama Papers that we published. Second point, to have an attractive company for talent. A company with a vision, a company that you want to join. That's very important for digital talent. And lastly, a profitable business. I think El Confidencial is one of the few newspapers that are profitable by a long margin. So that's what digital talent makes possible in a way. And that's true for a small or mid-sized company like El Confidencial, but also for a large company like Apple, Google, and Amazon, and so on. And for startups, be it here in Barcelona, whichever part of the world, they all compete fiercely and for talent. Probably you read about this guy, this 21-year-old guy called Michael Simon. He was hired when he was 17 years old. He was hired by Facebook. He was the youngest software engineer hired by Facebook, and now Google has hired him over a couple of months ago. We talked to him. He's a brilliant guy. He created an application when he was 13 years old. He started to earn $12,000 per month, and he was maintaining his whole family. So these are the type of talents that companies compete against each other. And we are not talking just about talent. We are talking about top performing talent. So the top 10% of the people, those are the ones that will help organizations grow faster. In the example of Nyman, and before we go into the panel, bring us to two more variables which I think are important. One is the scarcity of that talent. The problem of scarcity of talent in Spain is huge, and I think we'll see it in the panel too. Is it worse than other countries? Is it the same? There are some data saying that it's probably worst. If you look at the data from the Ministry of Education about number of students each year on IT and telco related degrees, those numbers are really sad. Basically, there's in 2002, to give you a couple of data points, in 2002 there were 100,000 IT and telco related students. Today there's 25% less students. If you look at what we call Ingeniería Técnica de Informática, there's 53% less students. If you look at Ingeniería Superior, there's 46% less students than in 2002. Of course, if you put in the numbers of women studying, and I see a lot of women here, those numbers are even worse. So there's about 54% of students in university in Spain are men. But if you look into IT and telco related studies, degrees, it's only 25% are women. So what's going on? That's the question we'll ask our panelists, and they will hopefully answer all of this. And obviously, we want to make this as interactive as possible. I'll tell you in a minute how we'll do that with you, and because we want to ask you a lot of questions, and the same way that you ask us a lot of questions. But a final variable, which is maybe answers, and we'll talk about this, about salaries in Spain. Maybe that's one of the key reasons why this is going on. Just to give a quick example, an average software engineer in Spain is earning between 35 to 45k euros annually. That's half of what they get, that same person, that same job position in Germany, the UK, and France. And now you'll be thinking, well, sure, but cost of living in those countries is much higher. Yes, it's true, it's much higher, but it's not twice the amount it is for that salary. So to give you a couple of examples, so renting, I was checking data yesterday, and this is all public data from reliable sources. Renting a one-bedroom flat in the center of Berlin, yes, it's more expensive than, for example, in the center of Madrid. It's about 14% more expensive. A 1 month ticket for transport in Berlin is almost, I have the data here, 60% more expensive. But for example, 1 month's membership to a gym in Berlin, it's almost 30% cheaper than in Madrid. All in all, if you make all the data, living in Berlin doesn't cost twice the amount of the money that costs living in Madrid or in Barcelona. So to sum up, this is a kind of a micro issue, this is a company issue, it's an economy-driven issue, and it's also a government issue. Because what's going on with universities? What's going on with R&D investment so we can have digital talent? We talk at El Confidencial to a lot of entrepreneurs and a lot of executives telling us, well, we need to import talent. There's no talent. We need to import it. Why don't we create something similar to the US? They have these H-1B visas where they can easily import talent. And Trump wants now to take down that program, which to me it's the best indication that the H-1B idea is the best idea. So if he wants to take it down, that's something that makes it very clear. So we should copy definitely that. That's basically it. Just some variables that we'll put on the table. So before we start, I wanted to make a couple of I think it's here a couple of remarks on how we'll do all this. There's if this goes, yes, Wi-Fi. There's Wi-Fi if you want to hop on. That's the password. That's the name of the Wi-Fi. And also there's a hashtag, of course, if you want to tweet the event. It's hash mobile talks. And also one remark before we start with the panel, we'll be doing a sort of interaction with all of you through a tool that we call sli.do. You just will have to open up your browser and your mobile, and we'll be asking you to answer real time 3 questions, and we'll be analyzing the data real time with the experts. All right. So, with further ado, I wanted to introduce the 4 experts here. If you want to come up, and we'll be introducing them one by one. So, it's a pleasure to introduce you to the 4 experts we have today. So, starting off with Christopher Dottie. Christopher is managing director of Asics Spain. Asics is one of the top recruiting firms worldwide, specialized in qualified, professional and skilled work. Christopher joined Asics in 1996. He previously worked for the group in the UK and Portugal, and he opened the Lisbon, Barcelona, and Valencia offices before assuming his managing director role. And he's from Liverpool, actually, right? Okay. We have Xavier Escales with us. Xavier is country manager of Asics in Spain and Portugal. If you use running shoes, you probably use Asics too. He's also CEO of the talent consultancy company Always People First. And he developed his professional career working for multinationals such as Panasonic, Life Fitness, and Accor Hotels, always in positions in the field of sales and marketing. There's also Sylvia Pascaline with us today. She's multilingual HR specialist with vast experience in agency and in-house recruitment. For the last 4 years, Sylvia has been a part of the corporate HR team of the Spanish pharma company Almirall, which I'm sure you all know. And he's a part of their global talent acquisition team. Thank you. And also, last but not least, Francisco Martínez. He's director of Celera. Celera is a talent accelerator aimed to identify talented individuals in Spain and develop their potential to their maximum capacity. Prior to that, he was director of the European Institute for Entrepreneurship, and he's also a member of the board of different startups. So, we'll give them about 5 minutes each to address a topic before we break into the panel. So wanted to introduce first Christopher. He will talk about the change in paradigm in recruiting digital talent and what tools you need to succeed in that. So, Christopher?
Yeah. Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. First of all, obviously, thank you for the invitation. I hope everyone understands my accent. I'm from Liverpool. My accent normally only gets too strong after 3 beers or talking about football, which, by the way, I'm from the city of Liverpool. The team is Everton. It's important that no one makes that mistake. First of all, in terms of the changing paradigm about recruiting digital talent, we need to understand the scale of the problem. And it is enormous in Spain. 10 years ago, 24% of the workers in Spain were under 30 years old. Today, that is 14%. Only 14% of currently occupied workers in Spain are under 30 years of age. That is a real crisis that is not changing soon. It is something that is driven by various issues. It's partly driven by changing demographics. We're an ageing population in Spain, and that's something that we have in common with a lot of Western developed countries. But we also have the driver in Spain that a lot of young people have left Spain to look for work and to develop their careers. I would much prefer personally that they are working in other countries, that they are gaining experience, and then either we will have a lot of qualified people returning to work in Spain, or we will have a diaspora of Spanish people, including Catalans, who can help the country in the future. So I don't worry about the brain drain, but it is something that we have to concern, especially here. We all know that most of the Spanish will have to return to have lunch with their mother every Sunday. They probably won't stay away. So the fact that they're working somewhere is good, but then there's the other driver, which is the youth unemployment in Spain. And I understand that we've been improving in generation of employment over the last few years, but we are still at drastically high levels. We still have over 40% of young people out of work. So from those 3 drivers, we only have 14% of young people who are working. And then we have to look at what skills they have and what skills they don't have. So it's difficult to find young people who are available to work, and then it's difficult to find the technical skills. As you were saying, I think the education system in Spain is structured. It is high quality in terms of the technical knowledge, but it isn't adaptive and it isn't flexible and it isn't changing. So when we're looking for people who have particular programming skills, we've got to go to 3 or 4 different universities who are closer to private companies, who are developing new courses very quickly, but there's not many people with the skill set. In my company in Hayes, we do a survey every year, and we ask 2,000 companies their opinions about the labour market. This year in the Hayes Guide, 72% of companies said that they had difficulty finding qualified workers. This is in a country where we've still got 18% unemployment, where there are still 4 million people who aren't working, but 72% of companies cannot find the skills that they want. 34% it was because they lacked digital skill sets. So in terms of the technical knowledge, there's a gap, and in competencies there's an even bigger gap. We still have an education system in Spain where we are trying to throw knowledge at young people who have a mobile phone in their pocket with the accumulated knowledge of humanity, and they don't need to learn knowledge for a lot of jobs. Where we are still very good is where they do need that knowledge. So engineering, Spanish education is excellent. Medicine, Spanish education is excellent. But that's not what most companies need nowadays. We need the ability to analyze, the ability to work in a team. We need proactivity. We need communication skills. We need presentation skills. I don't hear of those competencies being taught at Spanish universities. So it is a dramatic problem. There are solutions for society. There are solutions for the government and the various actors in the labour market. If we work together, we need more flexibility in the labour market. We can't have longevity. The longer you've worked in a company, that's your only job security. That's absolutely ridiculous, and that's why there's such an increase in people who've worked in a company for a long time, and there's not enough young people in the companies. But in terms of what companies can do to attract this talent, which is the key to I imagine this audience. First of all, it's about changing the culture in your company. A digital native does not want to work in an analog company. It is not good enough to say, I have created one vacancy for a young person and that will then change the company. If they're not working with people who understand their mindset, if they haven't got the flexibility to develop their role, if they haven't got the tools, they're not going to be able to do it. So it's about the cultural change within the company. In terms of looking for those people, you cannot trust, advertise and apply anymore. It's not the model. You can't just throw out an advert and then filter the responses. It's too difficult to understand the competencies. There's too many people going to respond, because in the past, I'm old enough to remember when we had to write a letter for a job. Now that took about 3 hours to write a good letter for a job. Now you can apply for 50 jobs at the same time, go and click. And they are people who 90% of them might not be very motivated for your job. And they might not have heard of your company. So advertise and apply and filtering those responses is going to get increasingly difficult. So what can we do? The young people, the digital talent, they want trusted brands. Now, what is trust to younger people nowadays? They trust recommendations from their friends. They trust social media. They don't trust adverts. So obviously, it's easier for big companies who are doing a lot of recruitment, or consultancies like mine, because we're constantly in the labour market. But even for startups, it's really important to remember that anyone who is remotely interested in your company will be looking to gauge your online reputation. So even if you can't advertise a lot, even if you're not there a lot, you need to make sure that you are in good condition in your shop window, that your LinkedIn profile for your company is good, and that all your employees follow it. You need to look out for the disruptors. So there's a web page called Glassdoor, which is like TripAdvisor for employment, which at the moment in Spain is tiny. But it's going to be the future, in my opinion, because digital natives trust recommendations. So if they trust it for a holiday, they look at TripAdvisor. If they're thinking about joining a company, they will look online to see what experience other people had. And you need to be aware of this and to be pushing positive messages online about your reputation. Larger companies use big data. So again, in Hays, we've got an approachability index. We know which companies and which people are most likely to have a good match. But every company knows their experience of recruitment. Are you taking note of it? Are you using that profile? Are you saying someone from this business school worked and someone from that business school didn't? Someone who's still living with their family didn't work, but someone who's moved abroad did work. Are we actually tracking this? It's small scale, but you need to start using big data to understand the profile of people that work. And my final point is just storytelling. Any company needs to be able to define what is special about that company. Even if you know it, even if you're proud of your company, if you can't explain it, then no one will see it. And you need to start understanding, why should people want to work for my company? Are we best at training? Is it most fun? Are we market leaders? Is it a disruptive technology? Whatever it is, that's fine. But there's something special about your company, and you need to be able to define it. And then you need to insert that into various key points along the candidate process as they consider working for your company.
Great. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Oops. Let me get the microphone. I think it's, yeah. So very interesting. We'll talk later. There's a couple of things that I thought was very interesting about, you mentioned a lot of this is a dramatic situation. And most people in Spain, we don't have the skills companies need. That's very important. And but whenever we tell that to people, they always, I talk to a lot of engineers, so they always come back with, well, but we don't have either the salaries for that. So there's kind of a trade-off there. We'll talk about that. But 5 minutes, Xavi will talk to us in 5 minutes about how to promote digital culture in a company that it's strong enough so you can attract and retain talent. Xavi?
Good morning to everyone. I'm not from Liverpool, so my accent is going to be terrible, but at least I'm going to try to do my best so you can understand me. Thank you. Thank you, Chris. So, first of all, in the last 10 years, we have been working really hard in Asics to be able to attract, to retain, and to get the best of our talent, our people. So today, for example, we have gym, we have training classes every day, we have personal trainers, we have yoga classes, we have free laundry, free fruit, dietists, psychologists, coaches, dietists, and many, many, many more, right? So we have experienced a lot how to create a kind of culture to attract this kind of people that are really, really demanding. And in the last 3 years, I have been also working through my company, supporting companies, most of them are digital companies, in order to boost the results through people. And in 4 minutes that I have now, I'm only able to give you three tips. And this is something that I would like you to be able to use from today on. The first one is you have to be able to answer clearly and loudly, who are you, right? So the talent want to know who is the guy I'm going to work with. So if you are a foodie guy, post on LinkedIn, on Twitter, on your website, on whatever on internet about food, because they will say, okay, this guy loves food, maybe I share this with him, he pays or she pays attention to details. If you like to read or to travel, post about trips, post about the last book that you just read, because this is culture. So they are going to think, okay, this person, he or she likes the culture. If you like dogs, post about dogs. Everybody loves dogs, right? So if you have a dog and you like dogs, you're a good person, you are sensitive, right? So post about dogs. If you love pets, post about dogs. If you like politics, post about dogs, right? So it's also really important. The other day one guy told me, Xavi, I want to post about how I hate one football club. And I told them, no, don't do it. So don't post about tricky issues, things that are linked to strong feelings. So be careful with religion, with politics, with football, and so on, right? So be sure that on internet you are able to answer this question, who you are, right? This is the first tip. Second tip, you have to be able to create a company culture, a company environment. Nowadays, some of my clients tell me, Xavi, I need the team to be more creative. And then I ask them the question, where are you creative? When you are sitting in a small room, dark, gray, and they tell me, no, I'm creative, or the best ideas come to my mind when I'm in the shower. So build a shower in your office, or when I run, create a running club at your office, or when I lay in the sofa. Put a sofa in your office. We have a sofa in our office. And when I tell them this, they tell me, yes, Xavi, but people are lazy. If I put a sofa there, they will be laying down all day long there. This is completely wrong. Talent people, they are really proud of achieving great things. If you think what are the things that you are really proud of, maybe can be running a marathon because it costs you a lot of effort, or close that deal because you were working months hard in order to get that. So people, we all love to work hard in order to get something that is really worth it. So you have to create environments where people can contribute the most. And please don't make the life of your team miserable from 9 to 6. There are people that they wake up happy, and then when they enter our building, then they change their mind. So it's our responsibility to create places where they can be happy and they can contribute. It's not about a party all day long. It's about creating places, environments where people can be happy and can contribute. This is the second tip. And the third one, and we were talking before the presentation, is about leading with the brain and leading with the heart, right? I'm sure that you are quite good leading with the brain because you have fantastic business plans. Here, my only point is focus on consistency. Nowadays, it's so difficult and the environment changes so fast that we tend to change the goal. So focus on the goal, be consistent, and keep the plans going. This is important. But it's even more important to lead with the heart. We are human beings, that we go through peaks and lows. And if you are able to rise the occasion when somebody in your team is through a low, you will see incredible results when he or she is able to pay you back, especially if you are through a low, because you will always go through low. So if you are able to touch the heart of your people, if you have a share of heart of your people, you have to be conscious that they have the steering wheel of the results of your company, and it will pay off. And basically, this is it.
Great. Thank you, Xavi. I really like one of the points you said about show what you can do versus tell what you can do. In the media sector, this is exactly like that. I mean, we get newspapers, we get like dozens and dozens and dozens of curriculums, and they are useless. I mean, in the sense that they don't show you what people are doing. But when you get someone showing you a report that they've just published and the value of it, that's a completely different story. So we'll talk about all that too. Sylvia Pascaline will talk now in 5 minutes about how to attract and develop digital talent internally in a company. So Sylvia.
Okay, thank you very much. So what I wanted to share with you this morning is my experience in Almirall. Almirall is a pharmaceutical company, and I would say traditionally pharmaceutical company. We're not the pioneers in new trends and digital movements, etc. More the opposite. We are more like the ones that more slowly comes on board with these things. Said that, I think in Almirall we have been able to implement during the last couple of years a lot of digital solutions. Basically because we're going through a cultural transformation, and thanks to these digital solutions, also digital transformation. So what we have done, well, 3 main areas that we have implemented in order to get all the employees on board. Firstly, a new social network. It's called Circle, and it's an opportunity for employees to work together in groups, being your own department, or being it cross-functional teams across countries, etc., where they can share information, communicate, discuss, etc. Okay. Then we implemented a new intranet. Our old intranet was very old, just with information, not interactive at all. So what we've done is implement a new, very interactive intranet, of course, where we share strategic information, our visions, what the different departments are doing, different initiatives, different information about illnesses that we're trying to cure, etc. But also having the possibilities for employees to react, to respond, to like, etc. And also with a lot of content of information about different areas of the company that is easily found. So everything very user-centric, the user, the employee in the center of this. Lastly, to focus a bit more on HR, what we also implemented is a new digital system called Success Factors. It's cloud-based, where we have, within that, we have all the main digital tools for HR, the learning plan for everyone, online trainings, development plans for all the employees as well. And what more concerns me, a recruitment tool, an ATS system, an applicant tracking system that allows us to track and be more in contact and easily find talent and candidates. Okay. Within my team also, in recruitment, what we're doing is also developing a new model. Whereas before we had a lot of our processes were externalized with headhunters. So what we're doing now is we have grown our own team, and we have internalized a lot of our recruitment processes, meaning that all the information about where the candidates are, the sources, the information about the different profiles, we keep that in-house. And this also helps us getting closer to the candidates, being able to contact them. Also, what we're working on is creating a talent pipeline, meaning that instead of react to the needs of the company, we are being proactive. We have business meetings with the key stakeholders of the company, where we talk about the key talent for the future. So instead of waiting for these vacancies to open up, what we do is map the market, normally through LinkedIn and other platforms, job portals, map the market to see where the talent is. I'm talking internationally, because as we talked about before, the talent is not always here in Spain. Get in contact with these candidates, being in contact with them, knowing their interests, knowing if they are available to or interested in joining Almirall. And like that, when the position's open, being able to react really fast and cover the position. So to sum up, basically, for the internal talent to engage and retain it, really invest in the user-centric tools to keep them involved, to keep them engaged, etc. And for external talent, also putting the candidates first and the candidate experience really at the center to give them a good experience.
Right. Well, thank you very much, Sylvia. We'll talk later, because it was very interesting about being proactive, right? In not just hiring when you need, but being constantly doing it. Reminds me to what you also said, Christopher, about new ways of recruiting from recommendations. I think that's one of the key points we'll talk about. But lastly, 5 minutes for Francisco Martínez. He'll talk about how to develop talent according to the needs of the market and the new skills today compared to skills in the past. So, Francisco.
Okay. Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. This is a tough question. It's not easy to answer. At Celera, we work not in order to fulfill the needs of the market, but to fulfill the needs of the Spanish society. We work with very young, talented people, and we follow them closely. That allows us to understand how they evolve in this complex world. We work with entrepreneurs, with researchers, with consultants, and even artists. In order to talk about talent development, we should take into account the trend that everybody knows in this room, which is the digitalization of work, and this is a threat for actual jobs. No, there are many reports, as you mentioned before, that are talking about that many jobs are going to disappear in the near future. But there are also other voices, like James Bessens, who is the author of the book Learning by Doing. And this man tells us that this is not a new phenomenon. This has happened in the past. Technology also used to automatize the work in the ancient time. And the key thing is what is going to happen. We are going to see more jobs disappearing, or we are going to see more jobs that are going to be created. And as he thinks, I think that we are going to see more jobs created in the future than in the past. Why? I brought here an example. Last month, COTEC, which is the Spanish Foundation for Technology and Innovation, issued a report regarding the Internet of Things industry, and companies are getting ready for this IoT revolution. This report says that not only the famous data scientist is going to be needed, there are going to be needed more job positions like circuit designers, coders, specialists in AutoCAD, specialists in cybersecurity, many positions that are already being demanded. But the problem, and also the report addresses this, is that the skills needed are not being provided by our schools. For example, in Spain, we have only 4 postgraduate degrees focused only in IoT. But in Europe, there are only 5 countries which provide degrees focused on IoT. I think that we are in front of a big opportunity here. In Spain, we have, as Christopher mentioned, our unemployment of a youth rate of unemployment, which is 36%. The total rate of unemployment is 16.4%. So we have in one hand a huge demand of new job positions, and in the other hand, a huge young labor force who is looking for this work. So if we are able to match these needs, we are going to be in advantage of many problems that we have. So how to do that? The problem, as the new General Director of Mobile World Capital said in his speech, is that change happens really fast nowadays, and the problem is that they are not standardized, and these jeopardize schools in one side, as I mentioned, and also companies, because they are not ready to hire people who has not the certification in order to prove that they have the skills that are needed. So how we solve this? James Besson addresses or recommends encouraging learning by doing. This is apprentice, vocational training. We have a vocational training system which is designed for the industrial age, but we are in the digital age, so we should adapt it. I can't finish my introduction without talking the most important skills that we are going to need in the 21st century, which are the soft skills. The World Economic Forum stated that the 10 more important skills that are going to be needed in order to face the thrive of the fourth industrial revolution are complex solving problems, creativity, critical thinking, people management, coordinating with others, emotional intelligence, judgment and decision making, negotiation, and also cognitive flexibility. That's why in Celera we are focused on soft skills. Nowadays, the communication, how we communicate with others, how we interact with others, the instant gratification trend, which is very famous, is killing the values of patience and effort. So I see this in my program. I have in one side 2 rocket scientists that are expecting the best results in the best case scenario in 2-3 years. And on the other hand, I have an entrepreneur who is very concerned about his impact in the world. So I'm also a millennial. I born in 1983, and I was concerned about my impact also. And after 18 months developing this program, I realized that this is something that has been with me since I was a kid, because my motto, which is from the movie Gladiator, you know, this movie, I'm sure, has to do with this. I'm going to explain this. At the beginning of the movie, Maximus is addressing his soldiers, talking about death. Who talks about death today? And at some point, he says, what do we do in life echoes in eternity. And it's this, the key issue. Eternity is where our impact is going to take place. What takes place tomorrow, next week, or next month is the consequences of the choices that we make. And this is really hard to understand, and there's some kind of training needed in order to be understood. So this is the kind of learning that, or training that we provide at Celera.
Thank you very much, Francisco. Okay, so well, this is just a taste of what we want to do now, which is about 30 minutes, more or less, 25-30 minutes of debate. At the end, we'll have about 10 minutes where we'll ask you, everyone, what I mentioned at the beginning with a tool called sli.do. We'll ask you 3 questions to interact, and we'll have, after that, another 30 minutes for Q&A. So I want you to, write as many questions as you want, and then you can fire them all up to them at the end. And okay, so well, we start, and this is meant to be, as fluent, as interactive as possible. But I wanted to start maybe with one of the questions in terms of definition. We constantly talk about digital talent, but I'm not sure we all have the same idea of what digital talent is. We talk also about millennials all the time, and it seems to me that a lot of companies think about millennials as, well, we need to put a millennial in our life, right? Everyone is talking about millennial. Let's hire a millennial, and then they put a millennial working with maybe a manager of 50 years old who doesn't know how to, manage this person, or the other way around. So, what's the best definition for you of digital talent, and does it relate and how to millennials, as we all talk about?
Good.
Anyone?
To me, millennials or digital talents, the definition is anyone that the bosses doesn't understand.
Right.
It's just a label. It's just a way of saying I don't quite understand these people. I don't understand their skills. I don't understand their abilities. I don't understand their motivation. I don't understand their drive. I don't understand their decisions. I think there's an awareness amongst older people, amongst the normally company managers and directors, that there is something special there, that there's something different, that there's something that they can take advantage of. But I think it's a real leap to try and understand, which is partly why I think a lot of startups are being more successful at attracting digital talent than some of the established companies, because there's a better understanding. The answer is fairly simple. Ask them questions and listen to the answers. Which I think doesn't happen often enough. I think if you want to understand what millennials are motivated by, what they can bring to the business, then you have to listen. And I think companies aren't in the habit of that. I think the companies try and guess without asking the question, without good communication. But as a generalization, and all this is a generalization, there are some things that are very different about younger workers today. They do value a project over stability. They do value recognition over remuneration to a large degree. They want variety in their work. And I think companies have to take a step back and think about the attributes they can bring, the development, but they really have to understand how to harness it. And the best way to do that is by talking to them.
Mm-hmm. Do you agree?
Is it my turn?
Well, anyone.
Sylvia, ladies first.
Yeah. Okay. Well, for me, a digital talent is not that much about specific profiles. It's more of a digital mindset. People that are able to think out of the box, people that are flexible, people that are open to work cross-functional teams, that are open to share knowledge. So for me, it's not so much talking about millenniums, because I mean, this any age, any seniority could be able to do this, but really people that are open and to embrace new technologies and new ways of working. So I don't think, for me, I don't want to put it into small boxes of age and seniority, but really talk more about the skill set that these people can give to the company.
You agree? Are we obsessed with millennials? Because we read all the time about that, millennials, and it's what you say in a way. I think so. Don't it's more labels rather than reality. Not sure. Or
I agree with Sylvia. It's a question of labels, because at the end, talent is talent, and people who is talented is able to do things that using the tools that they have around. So. This is what the difference now is, that the tools that these young people is using is the tools that the elderly ones doesn't have or doesn't understand. So this is why the gap is taking place. No, they don't understand how you can, with one smartphone, do social networks, make a presentation, contact with your friends, and arrange a meeting, and all in 5 minutes. Before this took much more time, and this is where the difference is. For me, there's no digital talent. It's people who is taking advantage of the tools that they have. They grew up with these tools, and the other generation didn't, and that's why it's so difficult to understand for the elderly ones.
I think that we pay so much attention to the millennials because they are going to be our workforce in the next few years. So by 2020, I think they will reach around 50% of the workforce in the world around. So they will. We are going to need them badly. So my definition of millennials is they are people with hopes. So and they have some things that they are. So it's challenging for us, because they were the ones that invented the entrepreneurship. So they invented the startup. So if they don't feel that their hopes are going to be fulfilled within our company, they will create their company, or they will go traveling around the world with a backpack. So I think that the challenge for the managers and the leaders in the company is to be able to lead different generations. So yesterday we were discussing it in the dinner, but already in the US, they realized that you cannot run a company properly only with millennials. So you need, this mix, because they bring energy, the new skills, but they lack experience. So between you and me, what do you prefer? To get operated in your heart by one millennial that just is full of energy, and or one guy that has some experience? So what I'm saying is that not all the generations have their pros and cons, and we have to find the good balance.
So you mentioned already a lot of variables about how to manage millennials, or digital talent, or native digital people. I want you to. So how could you sum up those 2-3 things key for having these people engage, and also from a manager perspective, what does a manager need to understand these people in terms of experience, maybe in terms of other variables?
Well, engaging with millennials is complicated. I remember there's a report of a Big Four consultancy firm that says that you have to do whatever they say. You have to promote them, you have to give them responsibilities, you have to do everything they ask, and then you have to be able to let them live. Well, I think that's something wrong about that, because if we are trying to engage millennials and we want to retain them, we have to be able to understand that it's not about doing everything they want, because one of the the criticisms about millennials is that they are, you all see this video, Simon Sinek, they are entitled, they are lazy, they are these things, no? So we are talking that this generation is a bit immature, so why you should do what an immature is asking to you? You should tell him, no, it's not this way. You need to be more serious. You need to be more focused on this, no? And sometimes you are able to bring this by challenging him, by involving in an interesting project. But sometimes work is not like that, and you have to realize that there are some kind of responsibilities that they are not going to be fun all the time, no? And I think it's a bit of mix of these things, because if not, they have this instant gratification always in his mind, and that's going to make them change. If you put the long term, little by little in their minds, that it's not going to be next month, it's not going to be in the next 3 weeks, maybe it's going to take a little more, but you are going to create the impact you are looking for. And this is difficult to deal with because we are not ready to understand how we interact with us.
I think the key is to be meritocratic. I think that what young people look for is that they are given conditions which are fair, considering the value they bring to companies. And I think what they see is a lot of companies where the best conditions, the best salary, the more security is because people have been in the job for a long time, not because they work hard, not because they're productive. And I think if we genuinely reflect the value that people bring to the company, I think that's a very good start. I do think that we've got to change the mindset from where we start with a job and then we look to push someone into the job. We've got to look at the person and then bring out the value. I was fascinated a couple of years ago. I went to a talk by Salvador Alemán, who runs a very, very big company based in Catalonia, and there were young students there, and someone put their hand up to ask a question. He said, "How can I get a job in your company, Senor Alemán?" And Salvador gave a great response. He said, "The world doesn't work like that anymore. What value can you bring to my company?" What did you study, for example? And the guy said, industrial design. So Senor Alemán said, well, actually, the toll booths on my motorways were designed 30 years ago. No one's redesigned them. They're probably not fit for purpose. If you go away and design a new toll booth for Abertis, then that is bringing value and we will remunerate you for that. And there's a trial of this guy's design happening at the moment. That is how the world of work should function nowadays, not trying to force people into a job that we've already designed.
It's fantastic.
I will add two things. The first one is the purpose. So nowadays we're in a crisis of values. So only around 25% of the people in the companies, they feel that the values that in the companies we say that we do this because of that, it's true. So only 25%. So 3 out of 4 they think that we say that we are only focused on making business. So we need to change that, and we have to be honest. And this is important in order to get them motivated and to retain them. And also we have to be flexible, because one customer told me the other day, Xavi, but how can I give purpose to my people when my company produces plastic tubes? So the impact on the society for me is difficult. And we agreed on giving some freedom to some young guys to cooperate with NGOs. And the mentality of the people changed, because they want to give impact on what they are doing. And sometimes in the companies we have some limitations. So if we are able to be some kind of flexible and we are honest, I think that we are going in the good path.
Okay. Let me ask you about, we mentioned before about some of the challenges we have in Spain. I wanted to know from you what you think about the Spanish situation, especially Christopher. I mean, you all have international experience, but the problem you mentioned about the skills. Mm-hmm. So what's going on in Spain? Do we have a much larger skill problem when it comes especially to IT and telco, for example, degrees and studies compared to other countries? Is that a structural problem? Is that education the first thing that fails? Because you mentioned now about the attitude, right? So if you don't know that to get a job at Abertis, you have to have that push, that attitude. Maybe it's because no one told you before. Maybe it's the education system what fails. So do we have a serious problem in Spain compared to other European countries, and why?
I'll be as concise as possible, because I could get frustrated about this for days. The Spanish labour market is broken. It hasn't worked in over 35 years. The average unemployment rate in Spain is 17%. We talk about generating employment. There are more long-term unemployed in Spain than there are in the United States. We have a critical problem. There are a lot of related issues. To me, the fundamental one is a lack of trust and unity between the various people who can resolve this. Companies say it's the problem of politicians. Workers say it's the problem of companies. We're just not working together. Everyone is worried about scoring points off someone else, rather than all sitting down at the table saying, what's the vision here? What can Spain achieve in its labour market? What kind of labour market do we want? It's all incremental change. So, we reduced the indemnity from 45 days per year worked to 33 days per year worked. Why is it based on years worked? There are things that just happen in the system out of inertia, and I don't think we need a reforma laboral. I think we need a new working model. A big part of that is how the education sector works with private companies. There's just no contact at all. I had a talk a couple of years ago between British unemployment services and Spanish unemployment services, and the guy from Catalonia said to the guy from UK, "You're lucky. You've got lots of companies to assess and to advise you on how to do this. We don't have that in Spain." I'm like, "Guy, I'm sat next to you." It's like there is literally no thought from the public sector that the private sector wants to help, wants to actually create a better society here. So to me, 30 years ago in Germany, there was a decision taken that all companies needed worker representation on their boards. Mm-hmm. So we get to the crisis, and what happens? German companies say, actually, we all need to reduce the working hours by 2 hours. And that means we won't have to dismiss anybody. So the workers say, yeah, that's great, that makes sense, that works for everybody. So there was hardly a labour market crisis in Germany. What happened in Spain 30 years ago? We decided to externalise the communication between workers and companies. So now the worker doesn't speak to their companies. There's no trust. If you speak to any worker in Spain, it's as if no company wants to hire anybody. If you speak to companies, it's as if as if no workers want to work. There's a fundamental lack of trust. Where we've got it right is where proactively private companies, often facilitated by regional governments, have started working with the education sector. So I think Barcelona Activa do a great job here. I think there's a hub here. You know, we need hubs, especially in this sector. You know, when Mark Zuckerberg left Harvard, he didn't go home. He went to Silicon Valley. You know, the Parque Tecnológico de Andalucía, the Malaga government have done a great job there, that because they've got a proactive university that's engaged with companies, they've got a centre with 400 technology companies there. And that's the same, you know, you've got a couple of examples in Barcelona and Valencia, but it's where companies are proactively looking to improve society, and there's the trust from the public sector to work with them.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned the education and that is not any connection between companies and the education sector. And we have been working on this issue also. And it's interesting because when you go to the administration, you find that the vocational training, that is our study was about, is divided. There's for one side Ministerio de Empleo, for the other side Ministerio de Educación, mm-hmm. And in the middle the schools and the companies. So the problem that they have is that, okay, we do the plan according with the education ministry, but the guys of labor ministry doesn't know how to work it out. So at the end, it's not a problem only in the upper superior level of the administration. It's also in a regional level, and it's really easy to connect both sections or secretarías generales and make it work, because we discovered that unions, companies' representatives, and government are in the same sheet. They want the same results. They know that there's a lot of potential if we address the reform of vocational training in our country, but there's no one moving.
Yeah, just a quick point on that. I think it's very true, and come back to the international side that you asked me about. It is true that it is worse in Spain than in any other country. There is going to be a big lack of STEM candidates across Europe and across the developed world over the next 5 years, but it will be worse in Spain, partly because it's difficult to attract international talent because of salaries, partly because the education sector is very resistant to change, but partly because we in Spain, we have a lot of pride that stops us applying what works in other countries. Mm. So again, I've been at an event where I've seen the Minister for Work from Germany explain what they've got right and explain the dual training is managed by companies. Because she said, I'm government, I don't know what skills that young people need to learn, so I use companies to decide what they need to learn. Mm-hmm. And sat next to her was the Spanish Minister for Employment, who just talked about how well she thought Spain was doing.
I would like to add one trend that I'm sure it's coming is the private trend. So, for example, 2 months ago, I met one startup here in Barcelona. It's called Iron Hack. What they are doing is just training in, I think it's 6 months, people for digital skills. And in fact, I was talking to the founder and he told me, Xavi, there's one father from Mallorca that called me and told me if his son, who is 14 or 15, can skip the university and come directly here because you guarantee a job, right? So this trend is coming in the United States. There's the trend called corporate collaboration, where big companies join because they have one issue, maybe because they have a big project that they can collaborate, or because they have an issue that they have to solve. So I think this private trend is coming for sure.
So it seems like we have a kind of disorganized situation where we have like 17 little Spains, right? 17 comunidades autónomas where they all do things differently. And then we have another disorganization where private companies, where startups and individual projects, we are sort of forced to push this. Mm-hmm. So is it one of the key problems, the glue, getting that all together? Is that a central government who should do that, especially on the education to get more talent? Is that glue missing, or what could be the point?
I think the first step needs to be a national government. I absolutely agree that, look, companies should not decide society. Society decides society. I'm not here, and I've decided to live in Spain. I love living in Spain. I'm not going to criticise the structure of society, but it's true that Hayes, for instance, we train the job centre workers on how to approach companies in certain regions because they just didn't know how to register vacancies to offer to the job seekers. And we've then come to other regions and offered that same service, and the job centres have said, no, we're not interested in more vacancies. It's very, very disrupted. It's very separate. That doesn't help. And I do think national government has to be the first one to take a step forward in terms of getting everyone around the table and making sure that we're building something for the future. I absolutely agree with Xavier about the private sector. That concerns me a bit, to be honest. As a member of society, I think that there is very, very good education available in Spain if you can afford it. And I think the fact that from young school kids who go to public schools then go to external classes for English and maths and football, etc., and for professionals, if you can afford to retrain as a programmer, then you can double your salary. But that means taking a year off work and paying 20,000 euros to invest in your future, and not many people can afford that. And I think we've got a real risk of a dual society if we don't get the public sector involved and behind this.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me ask you about so one more practical question, right? You mentioned about before the change in how companies are looking for digital talent in terms of recommendations. So how new talent, digital talent should go on in terms of looking for a position, and also how are the companies changing, or how they should change to look out for that talent, because it's more fragmented, it's more complex. What's, in your opinion, the best way to do this now?
Well, it's opening the way they hire, because this week on Monday, last week, Friday, I was interviewing a candidate for the program. She studied ambient scientists, ciencias ambientales. I don't know the translation, sorry. But she managed to lead a F1 team for her university. I asked her, how did you do that? I said, I was motivated. I love mechanics, I love cars, and I was able to do that. And I was interviewing her, and she was like, she was making in me a great impression, and she was concerned about her future, because she's going to leave the university. She also was a representative at the university. She was very active, very dynamic, and I told her, you are not going to have any problems to be hired. I said, yeah, the problem is when they see my CV, they think that I'm not a fit, so I'm not going to be able to work in Airbus, which was the company who was looking for, and that's the problem. You only read the CV and you said, oh, no, not interested. Or if you are looking for specific skills, there's no certificate still where it says, I'm a data analyst, I'm a circuit designer, or something like that. That's so I think that maybe companies should look into the achievement that the candidate has made, which is difficult. I do that because I'm really interested in a specific profile. I'm not hiring, but maybe through that way, companies will discover the talent they need.
Sylvia.
I also think, well, getting back to the references, as Chris said before, I think especially that through references from current employers is where you will find the talent. Because as you said, as Francisco said, it's very hard to know, and it's very hard to screen a lot of candidates to know if they have the cultural fit, apart from their CV, you know. But through employees, first of all, they know someone with the same background as themselves normally. So if you're looking for someone very technical or someone with a very specific knowledge, they will probably know someone in their environment that could fit the roles. But more than that, they know the potential candidate, and they know the culture of the company, and they know if there's a fit. So and also, of course, someone wouldn't recommend a person, then they wouldn't stand by. So normally, thanks to referrals, we do cover many positions, and that's also why recently we put into place a referral program where we really want to activate that employees, they look at all the opportunities that we have, and they think about if they have anyone in their environment that could fit the roles, and we also offer them a reward if there's a match been made.
Yeah, I think it's important for candidates, for job seekers to identify the companies that are evolving. Because it's difficult with traditional companies, because still 82% of employers in Spain give priority to experience rather than potential. And I think the companies who are then filtering based on the CV, there's a prejudice against young people and unemployed people, and a big priority given to people who've already done exactly the same job. It's easier and cheaper in the short term for a company to find a candidate who's plug in and play. I know they can do this because they've done it for another company. Now, that's not very intelligent, because if they've already done it for another company, they'll do it in exactly the same way, and they will not adapt to your company culture, and you will use any USP that you have. But there are still a lot of companies that do that. So I think identifying the companies who are more innovative is important. And yeah, adding that humanity in. So you know, understanding where you're playing the game. If a company's looking for experience, you need to write a CV which is a bit more interesting, which tells your story, which highlights the skill set, the competencies that the company's going to be looking for, rather than sending the same CV to every job.
Well, I'm quite direct with this topic always, because I think that the situation has dramatically changed. So in the past, the companies were like the pretty girl on the discotheque, right? So the strategy was just standing there, and the people, you know, and the guys came, right? Now the situation has changed. Now it's like me when I was a teenager. So I had to be funny, I had to be, you know, well-mannered in order to get what I wanted. So I think that the companies, they have to change the approach. Because we were talking yesterday also, you know, with Google, with Facebook, with Amazon, they are great companies, but they are struggling on retaining the talent, right? So what we need is to create some places where the people feel that it's really worth it, that they want to spend time there, not only 1 or 2 years.
But is it possible? I mean, we talk all the time about retaining. And yet you say, and very rightly so, you know, the Googles and Facebook, they struggle to retain for more than 3 years. So for most of us, or for a lot of people working there, it's like a dream job. So is it maybe that we no longer want, or new talent no longer want to work for more than 3 years at a given company? Should we change all that?
I think that what we have to change is the way we plan the length of the time that the people are going to work with us. So we feel that once the fight is for talent, so we struggle on recruiting. Once they are on board, we try to be fair, to pay fair salaries and so on, and to give fair conditions. But this is not enough, not anymore. So what we have to have is people within the companies that are always thinking, what's next? Because I can tell you that after having the gym, 6 months after, the people say, this is for granted, so what's next? Then you put the physiotherapist, then after 6 months, what's next? And then, because we are baby boomers, it's difficult for us to understand. Say, come on guys, you are not taking advantage of that, you're not, you know, thinking how hard it is to invest on that. But for them it's different, because they are from another generation. So we have to cope with this, to have this in mind, and, you know, and try to surprise them, to keep them motivated them in order for them to be there.
I actually think we need to forget retention now. I think it's an old model. I think you know, we're in the gig economy now. We you know, we need to talk about value. We don't need to talk about how long people have been there. That's the problem with the current market, that we're valuing people because they've been there. Why do we want to keep someone after 3 years? Is it because they've got knowledge? Well, we've said that soft skills are more important than knowledge. So why is it important? I think that if you can offer growth, If you can offer different opportunities, different responsibilities, then absolutely it's great to have the same people doing it. But I don't think retention is a useful objective in itself. It's just a way of, reducing recruitment costs, reducing training costs, but it's not actually adding value to the company. I think the days of retention being a key driver of business success, I think that's finishing.
What more and more people companies are doing is that, okay, yes, it's true, it's difficult to retain talent, but what they are doing is, okay, I give you the opportunity to go for working for 1 year or 2 years, whatever, and then I open my doors for you to come back.
Yeah.
And then this is a good possibility, in order because at the end they know that, you have invested in them, so it's a pity to see them leaving.
Yeah, but I agree with Chris. I don't think we should be afraid of talent leaving us. I mean, 2-3 years in a company, it's more than enough time for the person to have put into place their skills and also to learn what they need to learn. And exactly, if we can't offer them a promotion or keep them interested in or giving them a challenge, I think it's more than normal that they will leave. But I think that's okay. I mean,
it's almost more important the time to productivity, isn't it?
Yeah.
If it takes them 9 months to become productive, you don't want them to leave after 2 years. If they're useful after 2 months, then that's a reasonable period of time.
It's also the Czech culture is in the millennial mentality. So if after 2 years they did all the checks that they can in that company, they are going to look for another one. Right. So maybe one advice could be try to give all the checks possible, the gym, the yoga, what else we can offer them. But I agree with Chris that it's really difficult to talk about retention right now because they are looking for more things. The problem is I'm not sure if they know what they are looking for.
That's the big question. I remember, maybe to finish with this last set of round, or before we open up to those 3 questions I mentioned, I remember we were not long ago, a couple of months ago, 3 months ago, hiring for various journalist positions at El Confidencial, and I interviewed a lot of people, and a lot of people, when we told them that it was a full-time position in the newsroom, we are based in Pozuelo del Arcón, which is, yes, it's far from the center, that's true. But for a lot of people, they said, well, no, I just want to work from home, or at least I want to work from home, at least 3 days, 2 days a week, and maximum flexibility there, which we don't have at the moment in that sense. And we were losing very top talent because of that. So linking to that, we talked about salaries. In Spain, it's difficult for a lot of companies to offer a competitive salary against the UK, against other potential competitors. So what should we do apart from the gyms, apart from the footballing and all that for starters, which is, and also linking to the flexibility I just mentioned, what would you advise to companies doing there on top of salary?
Great leaders. I mean, I always ask the same question. Would you like to work for Amazon or for Google and they say yes. But what do I get in return? This is the first question but when you say, would you like to work with Elon Musk? You say, close to him? Yes, okay, they don't ask for money, right? So I'm putting it in black and white, but for me the important part is that, people want to do something important with their lives. Are we able to deliver that?
But that's a tough thing to say. You mentioned before about the pipe company. I mean, there's 5-10% of companies doing very interesting stuff, Elon Musk type stuff in Spain. What do you do with the rest? It's like you are forced to not have talent?
You just answered. I mean, do we have the leaders that we need? So maybe the problem is me. It's not my millennials in the company. So this is something that we have also to be critical and to, we have to be humble and to be aware that we don't know everything. And the times, I will say, I was not preparing my degree for managing the company that I'm managing now. I was not an expert on customer experience, employer branding, blah, 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 and everything. So we have to be humble and we have to be open to evolve. This is key.
Any takes?
Yeah, I think that's the best answer you'll get. I think great leaders is a great answer. Just to give a bit of international perspective, again, the survey that we do at Hayes, the Hayes Guide, we ask Spanish people working in Spain, or everyone working in Spain, how happy they are in the current company, and we also ask the expats. And consistently, there's a 20-point difference between if we say, would you recommend your current company to a family member or friend? In Spain, that response is 55% yes. Spanish people working in so the same source of people working in other countries, 75% yes. The level of confidence that Spanish people have in their company, in career development, in retention, in quality of management, is consistently a lot higher when they're working in other countries, which comes back to the question, are we developing a culture in Spain of great leadership or not? And I think we've got a way to go there.
Very interesting. Yeah. Any final remarks?
Well, on top of that, as you said, flexibility as well.
Okay.
I would say also, not only for women, but mostly, for a certain age, the flexibility, la conciliación, to be able to manage work life, personal life, or work life, having a hobby. It doesn't have to be family always, but really also the company giving the possibilities, as you said, to work from home or to organize their work schedule themselves. It's also a huge thing.
I didn't want to leave it in that we are all moaners in Spain, quejicas, or because.
I will finish by saying that. It's important when they are working in big companies to work with people that they are not doing the same as them. In my program, we have people who come from different places, and mixing this interdisciplinarity works really well. And they discover other sides of the company, in this case, other sides of the society. And there are people who is curious. They want to know how it works, how they do, and that makes people establish links between them. So I will say that there's something related to that is missing probably in the Spanish labor market, and probably it would be a good thing to do it.
Okay, great. Well, thanks for all of that. I think it was. I think it was pretty interesting. Let's open up to you now for the rest of the session. And the first part of the interaction we wanted to do is through this tool called sli.do. So I wanted all of you, if possible, to get out your smartphones, and you have to go. I think it's going to be on the screen. Not sure if I have to touch something. Yeah. So that's where you have to go. Sorry, sli.do.com. And when you get there on your smartphone, you just need to enter what you see there, the sort of code, the hash mobile talks, just like you see there in M capital letter, T capital letter. We'll wait a few seconds so everyone is there. What we'll do with this is we'll throw you now 3 questions with different options, and we'll ask you to vote, and we'll see how the voting goes in real time. So as soon as you're typing, we'll start to see the results, and we'll analyze them a little bit here. And we'll do that for 3 continuous questions, and then we'll open up for all of the questions you have. So are we more or less ready? Yes? There are no active polls at the moment, so maybe we can start with it. So that's the first poll that should be active in your screen now. Is everyone seeing it more or less? Great. So let's go for it. So the question is, which of the following factors compose a digital corporate culture? And you have 5 options. And yeah, I want you to vote whenever you're ready. So we have an environment of innovation and experimentation, the existence of an open culture. You see that the results are already popping up. That's changing, so that's hard to read. Okay, so let's wait a little bit better. We probably about 100 and something people here, so that's a good base to analyze this. Clearly, no one believes on the use of data, which is odd. So no more data points for the talk. So we have. Oh, it's nice. So actually first time I use this in a talk. So it's nice. You have the number of people voting. There's 66 now. So it's a bit fewer. And let's wait a couple more seconds. I think probably most of us are there. So we have almost the final results, 68 people here. So first, 32% of you think that an environment of innovation and experimentation is the best to compose a digital corporate culture. So it's changing, but not dramatically. Second one, the organization agility and flexibility, and third one, the existence of an open culture, very close to to the digital skills and mentalities of its workers. No one cares about data. So innovation, experimentation. That's interesting. I think it fits with a lot of things that we were talking about. Just wanted to ask you, because we are all the time with these topics talking about buzzwords, and so how can we get down to the terrain? Innovation and experimentation. What's that? How can we make that practice?
The challenge is for the big companies, and what you are start watching now is that they are doing this entrepreneurship sections, where it's like a small company beside the big company where they let young people do whatever they want. And basically it's a place where you can innovate and experimentate things and engage with players like startups or other interesting agents of innovation. So I think that's a good way to do it, but obviously you can't create this in a huge company out of the blue, because you are going to make maybe a big, huge disruption in the company, and that's going to affect the results at the end. We have all percent to it.
Can you take some, what should that be? Very quick.
For me,
Sure.
innovation is the addition of creativity and make things happen. So what are we doing in the companies in order to boost the creativity? How we facilitate, the teams to have this space, to have this, this state of mind in order to be creative, and how we manage with the teams. So there's always people within the companies that, everybody calls them when they need to make this happen, right?
Right.
So how we create the teams with these creative people that live in the world of the ideas, and these guys that, are straight to the point and then make things happen. This is important.
So let's creativity. That's a nice one. Let's jump to the next question, so we can see it. This is an odd one. Let's see the results. So, are digital startups still in talent from traditional business, or is it the other way around? So there's a yes, absolutely. Startups are stealing from traditional business. Other option, no, it's the other way around. Multinational companies are stealing talent from the startups, or it's both. The talent war affects both sides. That was pretty. I don't think we have to wait a lot for that one, right?
Yeah.
How do you see that? It's both ways, yeah?
Yeah.
I hope we organized an event early this February, and we put together CEOs of startups and directors of human resources of big companies. And the guy of Oracle said that, okay, you go to a startup, but I'm going to pay you by the end of the month. This is the kind of war that they are facing now, the big companies and the startups. And it was really interesting because all the young people who were in the audience were asking about how I can get to work into your company, to Oracle, KPMG, and BMW. Okay, so what's really interesting at the end, what startups are better doing that big companies is identifying talent faster than the big companies. And at some point, if they get big enough, and if we don't consider Amazon, Google, or Facebook startups anymore, they will be poached by big companies. But at the end, young people are also looking for stability. It's a kind of a myth that they are not looking for that. And it depends on each person, on each talent. It's not so easy. So I think that this is very clear.
Any key on how to do this war and win?
I think that at the beginning was really like that. So it was that the startups were, taking the talent. Now some talent is coming back to the traditional companies,
Right?
Because at the end is what everybody knows. No, that people don't change companies; they change boss, they change the project, they change the quality of living. So I think that we are try to simplify too much if we are saying there's the flow in this direction. I think if you are competitive on what you're offering instead of in terms of project, in terms of contribution, in terms of how's going to be your life, how is going to be your boss, then you are in the good direction.
Okay, let's go to the final. Well, maybe Sylvia and Chris can comment on that one. So final question on sli.do. This is an interesting one too, and we've been talking a lot in the panel. So what strategies does your company employ to recruit and retain talent? And there's a lot of them. And this will be interesting because to get your opinion on what works for you. So options, it provides balance between work and life, work-life balance, flexible and dynamic organization model, benefits, growth opportunities, encouraging development with training, emotional salary, which this is a bit of a euphemism. I think this is very important in Spain. Emotional salary, which maybe we can talk, but it's very very similar to benefits, right? In a way, and higher compensation. So, results. What you care the most is a flexible and dynamic organization model. Very people care about emotional salary, which is good news, I think. So yeah, it's very, very clear, flexible, dynamic organization model. What does that mean for you? What factors, Christopher, come into play there?
I think we can be honest between friends, can't we? I think that's an excuse for not doing any of the other things.
Right.
I think if you don't actually decide to pay more benefits or better salary, if you don't decide to have a better balance, you say, well, we've got a cool culture and anything's possible. That's often an excuse for not doing anything. And I understand that, if we've probably got a lot of smaller companies, startups in the room, it is very difficult to offer attraction that competes with larger established companies with bigger budgets, with bigger names, etc. I do think you still have to decide what that one thing is, and whether I think a flexible and dynamic organizational model, I don't think that really attracts people, to be honest. I think that it can be that you can offer them more flexibility or more responsibility or better training or wider responsibilities. That it's excellent experience for a lot of people to spend some time in established multinational businesses and in startups. It gives you a lot of different competencies and the different times of your career and your life when you should be in those two situations. I think smaller companies and startups have a huge amount to offer, but they need to decide what it is that they're going to offer. And I think having that conscious decision of this is what working in my company is like and this is why people should want to do it, I think a lot of companies need to think about that a lot more.
So maybe that's because we were all taking the rest as a given and say, okay, we have the rest, but we also want, I want to believe that flexible and dynamic organization gets through it. That's not a great selling point, maybe just offering that. Not sure what you think.
I definitely think that the basis needs to be in place. So as we said, offering a fair salary, good HR policies with training, with good benefits, etc. All that, I think that's the basics that need to be in place. And in my opinion, I think the most important is growth opportunities, to really be able to have the possibilities. I mean, not everyone wants to grow, but for the people that wants to. Have the possibility to grow. It could be vertically, it could be horizontally, but really keep learning and keep developing and have the possibility to grow with the company. I think that's the key.
I think I think everyone wants to grow, but in different ways. You know, whether it's emotional, whether it's learning, whether it's salary, you know, and this is why, in a sense, as much as possible, I'm sure every company should try and offer all of these things, because some will be important to different employees.
It's interesting that the work-life balance is not higher, because in Spain, I mean, I think we could agree that we are not very good on that. But no, that's fantastic. All right, so well, thank you for that. Thank you very much for participating. And so we enter in the last block of the session today, which is, I think, could be the most interesting, which is your questions. So without further ado, just wanted to open up for questions. I think there should be some mics, maybe. So we start.
Questions or opinions, no? I'm interested in learning from our guests.
Hello, Chris. Question for you. You've talked a lot about other companies and what they should be doing. Within Hays, how do you motivate and retain, at least up to the 3 years, your staff? Because you have probably 80% millennials, you work them very hard. Is it the KPIs? Is it the bonuses? How does it work?
Okay, thank you. Yeah, as you say, we probably do have 80% millennials, and unfortunately I am the oldest person in the company. If I ever find someone older than me, then they've got job security. Yeah, as you say, so 75% of our staff are recruited with based on competencies and skill set and values, not based on experience. Only 25% of the people we take on have experience. Like a lot of my colleagues, we try and do everything, and then some of that will appeal to different people. To me, one of the most fundamental parts is the meritocracy and the transparency. So in my company, for instance, there is published on the internet the promotion criteria. If you want to get to the next level, this is what you have to do. The salaries are published. Everyone earns the same. You know what you're going to earn. I'm very conscious that, again, it was interesting trying to run a recruitment business in Spain during the recession, when there was 28% unemployment. That felt like defying gravity. And again, we talked a lot about growth, and we said, well, if the company isn't growing, if we can't recruit more people, then people have to grow in different ways. They're not going to earn more salary. They're not going to be able to manage teams because we're not recruiting more. So that's when we changed a lot about how we do things. We put together working teams to analyze innovation, etc. I think there's a lot of focus on growth, and coming back to one of the points I made earlier, we try and talk to our staff and listen, and sometimes that's formal. We do an annual survey to take the temperature, but we also, every time we can, we go for a coffee, or when we're visiting a client, we talk to the staff and say, how are you doing? What do you like? What are you worried about? And I think that, you know, hopefully that should be enough. But I'm sure, like most people running businesses, I'm constantly worried that I'm not doing enough. I'm constantly trying to do more.
More questions. There's one here from Carlos. There's another one. But okay.
So I have basically two questions for the panel. One regarding how we escalate the skills of our current management. So these soft skills to build this environment, to lead with the heart. And how we escalate that? This is my first question. And the second is the education system is not running. That's clear. So we are starting to see new universities, new academies. There are code academies that promise in 800 hours to become data analyst. Other new generation of academies like INESD building digital people. So have you having experience with this new wave of learning that is outside of the standard vocational and university curriculum from the past?
I can answer the first one. In Asics, what we do is we have two psychologist coaches, so Natalia and Georgina, that they are from outside the company, so it's completely, confidential. They come 2 days a week, and they are there to support all the people, and also especially the managers. So, you need new ways of training to get new skills, right? So, and the key of the success in our experience is that the top management has to be involved. So all the people know that I am also attending to the psychologist, and they see me entering with a smiling in my face and going out with maybe a small tear that is about to fade.
Yeah.
So if you give example, and you, as I said before, you are humble and you admit that you also have to learn, of course, people will follow.
Yeah, I agree with him. It's for me the key is emotional intelligence. It's a concept that I was shocked when I realized that all the people who is doing our program is not familiar to it, and when they discover it, is a game changing. It's through psychologists also that we train our people in soft skills. In this country, we associate psychologists with problem, but we should start with related to improvement of your results, improvement of yourself, because it's really important being able to identify how you feel and why you feel some things that you don't understand. And this is all related to emotional intelligence. Our program lasts 3 years because we can't take the talented people away from them, but we are trying to start short programs for other people interested.
Yeah, I think it's a great question. One of the issues we have, this is Pareto's law. So we will always have 20% who are awful managers and will always be awful managers. There's 20% who really want to be the best leader possible, so they will pay to do courses, they will go to the psychotherapist, and they will try their best. The challenge we have as a society and as a business community is how do we move the 60% up, the ones who are only going to be reactive? And it's not easy, especially in Spain, where 60% of the unemployment comes from small and medium companies, which are privately owned. So, you know, how do we initiate change? I think we've got to look at how we measure success. What's a successful company nowadays? And I think if we're just talking about financial results, then we're not going to have better managers. If we're talking about the quality of employee satisfaction, if we're talking about how many people want to join the company, how many want to leave, some of this will be forced by the market because we're moving into a candidate-led market. As I think Xavi said before, you know, in Hayes, we have seen a lot of offers rejected during the last 2 months because candidates now have more power. And companies are going to have to, if they want to compete for talent, they are going to have to get better and better at leadership. So I do think that local governments, regional governments, universities, I think we all have to work together and encourage companies to produce better leaders. But at the end of the day, it's going to be law of the jungle. If they're not better leaders, they won't have the staff.
Mm-hmm. And in Almirall specifically, we have identified this problem, and it's also something to do with our cultural change. So apart from mentoring and coaching programs, what we put into place a couple of years back is something called an Inspiring Leaders program, which apart from a training was also a digital platform where different leaders could share different TED Talks or different information, discuss it, and really get to the point of it. What is a good leader? How do we involve? How do we improve? And thanks to that, get better every day and inspiring our people.
There's more questions, I think. But what about this?
Regarding the second question,
part, I was going to.
I would like to say, because it was very surprising for me. I was interviewing another candidate. This is a real thing that happens to me last week, and he mentioned that he has 11 MOOCs, but it was not in his CV. And I said, why didn't you put it? And he completed them in 2 years, which is amazing. And he said, well, no one takes this into account. And I said, why do you think that? And he is a researcher, he is in the university environment, so in the university, MOOCs of other universities are not taken into account, but it's interesting how they are doing this. They have this curiosity, but it's still a gap in order to get recognized the skills that you can acquire through a MOOC, I think.
Should we? That's a good question. It reminds, when you ask it, it reminds me about 5 years ago or so, when we were all talking about community managers and community management, and this was the kind of the new, and there were 10,000 euros courses, and everyone were doing them. I remember I was working at El País at that time, and I ran a story, and the title was, yes, there's a bubble in Spain, and the name is Community Manager. And I was, for 2 weeks, the most hated person in the whole country.
Yeah,
because
you don't want community managers attacking you.
Yeah, exactly. It's not a good strategy. And what happened 5 years after that? We all know what happened. Those courses are nowhere. Community management is completely different as it was before. So what should we do with those new courses, those new schools? Should we trust that or not? Should we do that or not?
Yeah, we need to try things. We need to try things. You know, the only alternative is to keep doing what we've always done in a different world. And I understand that you want as many checks and balances as possible, as many guarantees of the future. You've got to think about it. You've got to study. But, you know, coming back to the traditional education, last year in Spain, there were 200 people who finished a maths degree. And we're in the era of big data and there is full employment for mathematicians. There were 10,000 psychologists. Now, if you love psychology, I'm not saying you shouldn't do it, but you need to be aware that it's much more difficult to make your living from that. And, you know, the traditional education isn't working. There are risks with the innovative education, but I think we've got to, in a studied, balanced way, we've got to take those risks. We've got to try things.
Questions? I think there was one or two. No? Oh.
Yes, I have a question for Sylvia. My name is Alex and I work in the recruitment software industry. And you mentioned in your speech that you are using in Almirall success factors. I am interested in knowing in more detail, how do you think it is helping you and Almirall to improve the candidate experience and to attract more and better candidates?
Yes, I mean, where we came from, firstly. We came from, let's say, a system where we didn't really have a control about the candidates, which meant that we didn't always give them the proper feedback. So having everything within one system, first of all the job descriptions are in there. You have the involvement from the manager from the start to create a great job description to really define the role that we're looking for. Secondly, from there we post the job, so all the candidates that get into the system, we have control of. There's one, let's say, pool where we have all the candidates. From that, we can easily screen the candidates. We can easily give them a feedback. We can easily track the candidates, and also they enter in our talent pool, which means that if for this specific position we didn't didn't fit the role, we can easily also find them again through, it's like a LinkedIn search, but internally in our database, and get back to the candidates as we know that they have interest in the company. So when we have a position that can match their profile, we can easily get back in touch with them and contact them. And also the referral program that I mentioned before, it also goes through the system, which also means that it's very easy to track the referrals, where they come from, and if they pan out, who to give the reward to in the end. So it's all about putting the candidate in the center, making sure they have all the information, and more importantly, always give them a feedback. You should never, a candidate should never apply for a position with at least one email letting them know the status of the process.
Hi, I have a question for all of you actually. My question is, are Spanish companies interested in talent? Do they value talent specialization? I ask this because I've been recruiting creative digital talent for 10 years. And now that I'm based in Barcelona, I have challenges in both sides. Finding interesting companies for international talent that offer competitive salary and a competitive and interesting digital culture. But when it comes to the local talent, I actually have challenges in understanding who they are. When I see the portfolios, I don't know, are you a brand identity designer, packaging designer, user experience, or user interface designer? And I wonder, are they afraid to say who they are, or are just companies just want to still hire designers that can do it all?
Have you seen El Corte Inglés website? We're in an immature market in terms of digitalization. I think, unfortunately, that's very natural. I think, they are developing portfolio careers because we're talking about digitalization in companies, and we're talking about two extremes. We're talking about startups, which are very digital and very small, and we're talking about large companies in Spain, which are not digital at all. So, having a department where you can have all those specializations, where you can differentiate, is difficult. And then the more freelancer career, again, doesn't really exist in Spain because there isn't, first of all, in terms of the administration, it's not set up for it. We are, light years away from the gig economy in Spain. So the idea that people can develop careers where they're specializing in one niche and offering that service as a consultancy to various companies, that doesn't really exist either, because in terms of the administration of that, and in terms of the appetite for that, where people still value stability in Spain a lot more than they respect flexibility. So I think that, generally speaking, candidates in Spain are too wide and not deep enough, is my feeling.
Well, I can give you one example. 4 or 5 years ago, we tried to recruit one customer experience manager, and no one applied. No one applied. So, and it was difficult to explain to the consultancy. Yeah? Okay. We should have met 5 years ago because we finally got it. But I completely agree with what Chris said. I mean, we are not mature enough. No.
Are they interested?
Yeah, the companies, they are interested. We are not the fastest country, in this mentality. We have to work. But again, I mean, I think that, the leaders of the company, we have to push for that. We have to attend these kind of meetings. We have to be digital. So the other day I was in the radio with one interview, and I was explaining that it doesn't happen anything if the CEO of the company is on LinkedIn during the working hours, right? He's not leaving, but maybe he's answering, some colleagues, he's contacting, and you have to be digital. And I think that also that the leaders of the company, we have to switch and we have to, be more pro-digital, because then, all goes cascade down in the company, and also it's easier for, to look for and to explain what it is. Maybe I was not clear enough when I was asking for a customer experience manager 5 years ago.
Okay, so there's time for a final question, I think. Last one.
Okay, I think that could be easy, but anyway, you all mentioned that it's important to tell who we are to the people. So my question is, which employer branding policies do you think are the most important ones?
The one that comes from your heart. So, for example, every day I post about how important the people are in the company. Whenever there's a lunch or a dinner with my team, they are fed up with me. Guys, now we take a picture and then we post it, and this is important. But if it's dogs, it's dogs. If it's you like the new trends in in the pharma industry, then position yourself at that. So whatever, it's really true, because at the end. The other day I was reading that Anonymous has disappeared in this century. So people will know about you. If you're telling that you are like that you love dogs, they will find a picture where you hit one dog ass. You know what I mean? So be honest and then position yourself.
And which channels are you using?
Which
channels? Which channels?
In my case, it's LinkedIn, because I'm professional. So I'm talking about my family or whatever it is, but you have to decide what it is. Maybe in a startup, the other day I was talking with a startup that has one corner specifically for taking pictures during the working hours. And they want to, be positioned as the guys that, help you. So it doesn't. If it's Twitter, then it's different. If it's Facebook, it's completely different. So decide your channel. What your target is.
Yeah, this is where you need specialists to define your policy. So Hays is the most followed company on LinkedIn in Spain. So we've focused a lot of our attention there. Facebook, for example, Hays doesn't exist, but Hays Careers does. Because to attract internal consultants, it's of interest to us, but to attract clients and candidates, it's not. So you really have to define the channel, and we're constantly looking for new channels coming into the market as well.
Great. Well, I think we've run out of time. So thank you very much to the panelists, to the 4 experts here. It's been, I think, really, really interesting. Thank you for your time, because great questions, great interaction. And before finishing, I just wanted to remind you very quickly for the next mobile talks that will be, I've been told that the tech trends, it will be the tech trends right after the Mobile World Congress. But before that, on December the 12th, so write it down, December 12th, there will be a mobile talk cafe on the topic of mobile first. So you will see more information coming up soon on the website. So that's it. Thank you very much to all the panelists. There will be, I think, a networking coffee here, where, yeah, I mean, you'll have a chance to ask them more questions and maybe find more digital talent too. So thank you very much, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.